Some of Hollywood's biggest Golden Age stars spent 6 weeks filming in the dust and sand near St. George, Utah, where nuclear tests had taken place just a few years prior. Their set, by many accounts, was dangerously radioactive. In the decades that followed, nearly half of the men and women who worked on the Conqueror for just a few weeks in the desert would develop cancer, including the legendary John Wayne. These striking statistics have made the Conqueror infamous for something beyond bad acting and insensitive casting. Did a movie shot downwind of an atomic test site actually claim the life of one of Hollywood's biggest stars? Or is there more to these numbers than meets the eye? This is the true story of the Conqueror. At the height of his career, American film legend John Wayne made a surprising choice. After reading a script and lobbying for the lead, the silver screen icon appeared in 1956's The Conqueror as an undeniably miscast Genghis Khan. Despite featuring other big names like Susan Hayward, the film did only modestly at the box office and garnered scathing reviews for Wayne's role, widely regarded as one of the worst casting decisions in Hollywood history. The Conqueror remains best known as a flop. Critics found the Duke's performance as the Mongol warlord both uncomfortable and unconvincing. Howard Hughes, who produced the film, reportedly pulled it from circulation soon after release. Legend has it Hughes watched it obsessively in his final reclusive years, a testament to his guilt or fascination with what some now call Hollywood's biggest mistake. The real tragedy, however, might lie in the film's production near St. George, Utah, just 220 kilometers downwind of the Nevada test site. Between 1951 and 1953, the U.S. government detonated 11 nuclear devices there. As it turned out, Snow Canyon, the picturesque shooting location, was heavily contaminated by radioactive dust. Producer Howard Hughes allegedly knew about the fallout but took the government at its word that the area was safe. For 13 weeks, cast and crew filmed on these radioactive plains. Worse still, Hughes later trucked an estimated 60 tons of Utah soil to Hollywood for studio reshoots, further exposing everyone to radiation. Over the next 25 years, 91 out of 220 cast and crew members, about 41%, were reportedly diagnosed with cancer. Of that group, 46 died of the disease, including stars Susan Hayward, Agnes Moorehead, and Lee Van Cleef, as well as the film's director, Dick Powell. John Wayne also developed cancer years later, adding fuel to rumors that the film was doomed from the start. Mexican actor Pedro Armendariz was another cast member who developed severe health problems after The Conqueror. In 1963, he received a devastating cancer diagnosis affecting his kidney and neck. At the time, he was working on the James Bond film From Russia with Love. Determined to see the project through, Armendariz insisted on completing his scenes first, often battling through excruciating pain on set. His performance as Karim Bey became a highlight of the movie, but he died soon after shooting wrapped, leaving many to wonder if his condition was tied to the radioactive environment in Utah. How real was the threat of nuclear fallout? Fallout refers to the particles, radioactive dust, ash, soil, that linger after a nuclear explosion. The bombs tested near St. George were especially concerning because the blasts weren't wholly contained. Winds carried dust containing fission products for miles. That dust settled across Utah and beyond, in places even the government hadn't anticipated. In the early 1950s, residents of St. George already saw themselves as downwinders, living under suspect clouds that might pose health hazards. Authorities repeatedly assured them it was no big deal, but the grim statistics from the Conqueror's cast and crew revived suspicions about the safety of those test sites. Did the government know more than it disclosed? John Wayne was perhaps the film's most famous casualty, passing away from cancer in 1979. However, critics of the radioactive set theory argue that Wayne's long history of heavy smoking, often up to 6 packs a day, was likely a larger factor in his illness than the contaminated Utah soil. It's hard to isolate a single cause, but many still connect his death to the Conqueror's hazardous filming conditions. The legend that a radioactive movie killed John Wayne has persisted, illustrating how deeply that production scandal etched itself into pop culture. While the numbers seem alarming, 41% developing cancer, the statistic may mirror general cancer rates over several decades for a large group, especially considering smoking habits and older age. Also, subsequent investigations suggest that radiation levels at the filming sites may have been below thresholds known to cause widespread harm. Even the notion that 91 of 220 cast and crew were exposed might be misleading. Not all 220 worked on location simultaneously. Some had minimal contact with the soil. Add to that the possibility of normal statistical variation, and the link becomes murkier. Still, as one University of Utah physician noted, the unusual clustering of cancer cases remained suspicious enough to keep controversies alive. Howard Hughes never publicized his thoughts about the fiasco beyond rumored private comments. Some say he spent millions acquiring all known prints of the Conqueror, tormented by guilt for choosing such a contaminated site and possibly being responsible, however indirectly, for the illnesses that followed. Others suggest he simply wanted to bury a film that was, by any measure, a colossal creative misfire. Regardless, The Conqueror all but vanished until after Hughes's death, when Paramount reacquired the distribution rights. The film's reemergence resurrected the question of who was truly accountable if the site's radiation indeed played a lethal role. The Conqueror stands as a painful chapter in Hollywood's storied past, often listed among the worst films ever made. Its behind-the-scenes tale of possible radioactive fallout cements its place in dark Tinseltown lore. Did it really seal John Wayne's fate, or that of other stars? Scientific data remains inconclusive. Heavy smoking, poor working conditions, and the normal incidence of cancer in older populations all muddy the waters.